Before history was written and empires were named, war was already shaping the world in stone. Across continents, builders raised fortresses where invasion was expected and survival was never guaranteed. These walls were engineered through strategy, fear, and human determination, meant to outlast both armies and time. When sieges came, days turned into weeks, supplies vanished, and every gate became the line between collapse and endurance. This is a journey into strongholds that face the full weight of war and still stand where so many others fell. Standing on the European shore of the Bosphorus, Rumeli Fortress was constructed in 1452 under the direct command of Sultan Mehmed II. It rose during a moment when the Ottoman Empire was preparing for its most ambitious campaign. Built in just a few months, the fortress was designed with a single purpose in mind: to control the narrowest point of the strait. Massive stone walls and 3 dominant towers allowed Ottoman cannons to dominate all naval movement. Its position made escape and resupply nearly impossible for any force passing through. Rumeli Fortress played a decisive role in the siege of Constantinople in 1453. Ottoman artillery stationed within the fortress destroyed ships that attempted to aid the Byzantine capital. With the Bosphorus sealed, Constantinople was cut off from external support and slowly weakened. The fall of the city marked the end of the Byzantine Empire and the beginning of a new Ottoman era. Today, Rumeli Fortress still overlooks the water it once controlled, standing as a structure built for one war that succeeded exactly as planned. Edinburgh Castle rises from an ancient volcanic rock, dominating the landscape of Scotland's capital. Fortifications existed on this site as early as the 12th century, making it one of the oldest continuously occupied strongholds in Britain. Its elevated position allowed defenders to monitor all approaches to the city. Thick stone walls and narrow access routes turned the castle into a natural fortress. Control of Edinburgh Castle often meant control of Scotland itself. Throughout history, the castle was besieged more than 20 times, making it one of the most contested fortresses in Europe. It played a central role during the Scottish Wars of Independence, repeatedly changing hands between Scottish and English forces. Cannons, starvation, and betrayal all shaped its long military history. Even when captured, it was rarely held for long. Today, Edinburgh Castle remains a symbol of resistance, forged through centuries of siege warfare. Carcassonne stands in southern France as a fortified city unlike any other in Europe. Its double walls and dozens of towers were developed over centuries to guard a critical route between the Atlantic and the Mediterranean. By the early Middle Ages, it had become a powerful defensive stronghold, controlling trade and movement across the region. Stone ramparts enclosed the city completely, leaving attackers with few points of access. Its defenses combined Roman foundations with later medieval military design. In 1209, Carcassonne was besieged during the Albigensian Crusade, a campaign launched to crush the Cathar movement in southern France. Crusading forces cut off the city's water supply, forcing surrender without a direct breach of the walls. The population was expelled, and the city was placed under direct royal control. Carcassonne was then reinforced and transformed into a key frontier fortress between France and Aragon. Its survival shifted political power in the region and strengthened the French crown's authority in the south. Malbork Castle was constructed in the 13th century by the Teutonic Order, rising along the Nogat River as the heart of their state. Built entirely of brick, it became the largest medieval castle in Europe by surface area. Its defensive system included multiple courtyards, fortified gates, and thick outer walls designed to absorb prolonged attack. The castle served as both a religious center and a military headquarters. From this stronghold, the Teutonic Knights governed large parts of the Baltic region. Its greatest test came after the Battle of Grunwald in 1410, when Polish and Lithuanian forces laid siege to the fortress. Despite the defeat of the Teutonic army in the field, Malbork resisted capture through strong fortifications and disciplined defense. The failure to take the castle prevented a complete collapse of the Teutonic state. Control of Malbork later passed to Poland in 1457, reshaping power in Central Europe. The fortress remained a strategic military site for centuries due to its size, location, and defensive strength. Prague Castle occupies a commanding position above the Vltava River and has served as a seat of power since the 9th century. Over time, it expanded into one of the largest castle complexes in the world, combining palaces, fortifications, and religious buildings. Its walls were reinforced repeatedly as new forms of warfare emerged. Control of Prague Castle meant control of Bohemia and its surrounding trade routes. This made it a constant target during periods of regional instability. The castle witnessed direct combat during the 30 Years' War, particularly in 1648, when Swedish forces launched an assault on Prague. Fighting spread into the castle district as defenders resisted occupation. Although parts of the city fell, the core of Prague Castle remained in imperial hands. The failed capture helped preserve Habsburg authority in the region. The conflict marked one of the final military confrontations of the war and left lasting damage across Prague. The Tower of London was founded in 1066 by William the Conqueror following the Norman invasion of England. Built along the River Thames, it was designed to intimidate, defend, and control the capital. Thick stone walls and strategically placed towers made it one of the strongest fortresses in medieval England. Over centuries, it served as a royal residence, treasury, and prison. Its presence shaped the political life of London. The tower witnessed multiple sieges and armed takeovers during England's internal conflicts. In 1381, rebels entered the fortress during the Peasants' Revolt, exposing the vulnerability of royal authority. It was again contested during the Wars of the Roses, when control of the tower shifted between rival factions. Later, it became a symbol of state power during periods of rebellion and unrest. Each conflict reinforced its role as both a military stronghold and a center of political control. Buda Castle rises above the Danube on Castle Hill, guarding one of Central Europe's most important river crossings. First fortified in the 13th century, it became the royal seat of Hungarian kings and a focal point of regional power. Thick walls, elevated terrain, and layered defenses turned the complex into a formidable stronghold. As rival empires expanded, control of Buda meant influence over trade routes and military movement through the Carpathian Basin. Its position ensured that war would eventually reach its gates. The castle was besieged repeatedly during the Ottoman-Habsburg Wars between the 16th and 17th centuries. It fell to Ottoman forces in 1541, remaining under their control for more than a century. In 1686, a massive Christian coalition launched a prolonged siege that ended Ottoman rule in Hungary. Artillery bombardment devastated large sections of the fortress and surrounding city. The capture of Buda marked a decisive shift in power across Central Europe. Mehrangarh Fort towers above the desert city of Jodhpur. Rising from a rocky hill over 120 meters high. Founded in 1459 by Rao Jodha, it was built to secure Rajput rule in the Marwar region. Massive walls, some reaching over 20 meters in height, encircle the fort along sheer cliffs. Narrow entrances and angled gates were designed to break attacking formations. Its elevated position made direct assault extremely difficult. The fort witnessed repeated conflicts during the Rajput-Mughal Wars of the 16th century. Cannon marks still visible on its walls date back to attacks led by Mughal forces under Emperor Akbar. Control of Mehrangarh shifted through warfare, alliances, and sieges that shaped northern India's political balance. Even when captured, the fort remained militarily relevant due to its defenses. Mehrangarh stands today bearing the physical scars of artillery fire from centuries of warfare. Conwy Castle was built between 1283 and 1289 by Edward III of England as part of his campaign to conquer Wales. Set on a rocky ridge overlooking the River Conwy, the castle was designed to dominate both land and sea routes. 8 massive towers and thick curtain walls formed a tightly controlled defensive ring. The fortress was integrated with the walled town, allowing supplies and troops to move under protection. Its layout reflected lessons learned from earlier medieval warfare. The castle faced its greatest test during the Welsh uprising led by Owain Glyndwr in the early 15th century. Conwy was besieged, and defenders were pushed towards starvation as supplies ran low. Control of the castle shifted during the conflict, exposing how quickly power could change in contested regions. The siege highlighted the vulnerability of even well-designed fortresses when cut off from support. Conwy's survival helped secure English authority in North Wales. Mont Saint-Michel rises from tidal flats along the Norman coast, connected to the mainland only at low tide. Fortifications were added beginning in the 13th century, transforming the abbey into a defensive stronghold. Steep natural slope, narrow approaches, and thick walls made direct assault extremely difficult. The surrounding tides acted as a natural moat, trapping attacking forces at sea. Its position turned geography itself into a weapon. During the 100 Years' War, Mont Saint-Michel was besieged repeatedly by English forces. Despite prolonged pressure and artillery fire, the fortress was never captured. The defenders used elevation and limited access points to repel attacks over decades. Its resistance became a symbol of French endurance during one of Europe's longest wars. The failure to take Mont Saint-Michel preserved French control of the Normandy coastline and disrupted English expansion plans. Acrocorinth crowns a steep limestone hill overlooking the Isthmus of Corinth, one of Greece's most strategic land corridors. Fortifications on this site date back to antiquity, with major expansions during the Byzantine, Frankish, and Ottoman periods. Its elevation provided sweeping visibility across land and sea routes, connecting northern and southern Greece. Multiple rings of walls, towers, and gates reflected centuries of adaptation to new threats. Whoever controlled Acrocorinth controlled movement through the Peloponnese. The fortress was besieged and captured repeatedly, changing hands through force rather than diplomacy. In 1210, Frankish crusaders took the stronghold after sustained pressure. Ottoman forces captured it in 1458, only for Venice to seize it again in 1687, before the Ottomans returned in 1715. Each transition reshaped regional power and trade. Acrocorinth's layered defenses record the long struggle for dominance in southern Greece. Rozafa Castle stands on a rocky hill where the Buna and Drin rivers meet, guarding northern Albania's main approaches. Fortifications here predate the Middle Ages, with major strengthening under Byzantine and later Ottoman rule. Its position allowed defenders to control river traffic and inland routes toward the Adriatic. Thick walls followed the natural contours of the hill, creating difficult angles for attackers. The castle's design emphasized endurance over elegance. The fortress is most famous for resisting Ottoman expansion during the 15th century. In 1478–1479, Rozafa endured a prolonged siege by Ottoman forces after years of regional resistance. Despite determined defense, the stronghold ultimately fell, marking a decisive moment in Albania's incorporation into the Ottoman sphere. The siege altered political control across the Western Balkans. Rozafa's capture demonstrated how sustained pressure could overcome even the most stubborn natural defenses. Castillo San Felipe de Barajas rises above the port city of Cartagena, guarding Spain's most important stronghold in the Caribbean. Construction began in 1536, with major expansions completed in the 17th century as attacks intensified. Its design relied on sloped walls, deep trenches, and an internal tunnel system meant to confuse and trap attackers. Positioned on San Lazzaro Hill, the fortress controlled both land and sea approaches to the city. Every modification reflected lessons learned from earlier assaults. The castle faced its greatest test in 1741 during a massive British siege led by Admiral Edward Vernon. More than 20,000 British troops attempted to capture Cartagena, launching repeated assaults against the fortress. Despite being heavily outnumbered, Spanish defenders held their ground using terrain, fortification design, and coordinated fire. The British retreat became one of the most decisive defensive victories in colonial warfare. The failure of the siege preserved Spanish dominance in the Caribbean for decades. Castello Sforzesco dominates the heart of Milan, originally rebuilt in the 15th century by Francesco Sforza, Duke of Milan. The fortress was designed to secure control over one of Italy's richest and most contested cities. Thick, bastioned walls and wide defensive courtyards reflected the transition from medieval to early modern warfare. Its position made it a key objective for any power seeking control of northern Italy. As rival states clashed, the castle became a constant military prize. During the Italian Wars, 1494–1559, Castello Sforzesco endured repeated sieges by French, Spanish, and imperial forces. Artillery bombardments damaged large sections of the structure, forcing continuous rebuilding. Control of the castle changed hands multiple times as alliances shifted. Each occupation reshaped Milan's political future. The fortress stands today as physical evidence of how Italy became a battlefield for Europe's great powers. Fort St. Angelo stands at the entrance of Malta's Grand Harbour, occupying a position that has been fortified since antiquity. Its foundations were strengthened by the Knights of St. John in the 16th century, transforming it into the nerve centre of Malta's defences. Thick stone walls, angled bastions, and commanding gun platforms allowed it to control all naval movement into the harbour. From this position, the fort served as the headquarters of the knights. Whoever held Fort St. Angelo effectively controlled Malta itself. The fortress played a decisive role during the Great Siege of Malta in 1565. One of the most intense confrontations of the early modern era. Ottoman forces launched sustained bombardments and assaults aimed at breaking the harbour defences. Fort St. Angelo coordinated resistance across the island, directing artillery fire and troop movements, despite overwhelming pressure. The defenders held their positions until Ottoman forces withdrew. The survival of the fort marked a turning point that halted Ottoman expansion in the central Mediterranean. The Alhambra rises above Granada on a ridge overlooking the Vega, commanding the routes between the mountains and the Mediterranean coast. Its major fortifications were developed during the 13th and 14th centuries under the Nasrid dynasty, combining palace architecture with serious military defense. Thick walls, watchtowers, and controlled gates protected the complex from direct assault. The position allowed defenders to monitor enemy movement long before an army reached the city. Though celebrated for its beauty, the Alhambra was built with war in mind. The fortress became the final Muslim stronghold during the Reconquista, as Christian kingdoms advanced across Iberia. In 1491, forces under Ferdinand and Isabella laid siege to Granada, cutting supplies and isolating the city. The Alhambra did not fall by storming, but through sustained military pressure and blockade. Its surrender in 1492 ended nearly 8 centuries of Islamic rule in Spain. The capture of the Alhambra reshaped European politics and marked the close of medieval warfare in Iberia. Smederevo Fortress was constructed in the early 15th century along the Danube River as the new capital of medieval Serbia. Built under despot Đurađ Branković, it was designed to defend the last independent Serbian state against Ottoman expansion. Massive stone walls formed a triangular enclosure reinforced with towers and river-facing defenses. Its lowland position reflected the growing importance of artillery warfare rather than steep hilltop defense. From the moment it was completed, the fortress stood directly in the path of invasion. The fortress faced repeated Ottoman pressure throughout the mid-1400s. In 1459, after prolonged military threat and isolation, Smederevo fell to Ottoman forces, marking the end of medieval Serbian independence. Its capture secured Ottoman control of the Central Balkans and opened routes deeper into Europe. The fall of Smederevo reshaped regional power and confirmed the effectiveness of gunpowder-era siege tactics. The fortress continued to serve as a key military site under Ottoman rule for centuries. The city walls of Dubrovnik encircle one of the most heavily fortified maritime cities in Europe. Construction began in the 10th century and continued for hundreds of years as threats evolved. Thick stone ramparts, towers, and bastions protected the Republic of Ragusa from naval and land-based attacks. Positioned along the Adriatic Sea, the walls guarded vital trade routes linking east and west. Defense, not expansion, defined Dubrovnik's military strategy. Dubrovnik avoided conquest through diplomacy, but its walls were repeatedly tested by war. During the Croatian War of Independence in 1991, the city was bombarded by artillery and naval fire. The fortifications absorbed damage while protecting the historic core from complete destruction. This modern siege demonstrated that centuries-old defenses still shaped the outcome of conflict. Dubrovnik's survival preserved one of Europe's most intact fortified cities into the modern era. The Alcázar of Toledo stands on the highest point of the city, overlooking the Tagus River and the surrounding plains of central Spain. Fortifications on this site date back to Roman times, but the structure took its modern form as a military academy in the 19th century. Thick stone walls and a commanding elevation made it a natural defensive position. Its location allowed control over Toledo and key routes toward Madrid. Even in the age of modern warfare, the Alcázar remained strategically relevant. The fortress became the center of one of the most famous sieges of the 20th century during the Spanish Civil War in 1936. Republican forces surrounded the Alcázar for more than 70 days, subjecting it to heavy artillery bombardment. Much of the structure was reduced to rubble, yet the defenders refused to surrender. When nationalist forces finally reached Toledo, the siege ended and the Alcázar was retaken. The event became a defining symbol of endurance and propaganda in modern European warfare. Rising above the plains of central Japan, Osaka Castle was first constructed in 1583 by Toyotomi Hideyoshi, a leader determined to reunify a nation fractured by decades of civil war. The castle emerged during the Sengoku period, when rival warlords fought constantly for control. Massive stone ramparts, deep moats, and elevated towers were designed to resist prolonged attack. Every element of the structure balanced military strength with political authority. From this position, Hideyoshi projected power across Western Japan. Following Hideyoshi's death, Osaka Castle became the focal point of the Siege of Osaka, 1614–1615. Forces loyal to Tokugawa Ieyasu surrounded the stronghold and launched sustained assaults. The castle ultimately fell, ending the Toyotomi lineage and securing Tokugawa rule. Though destroyed and rebuilt multiple times due to fire and conflict, its legacy remained intact. Today, Osaka Castle stands as the site where Japan's age of war came to a definitive close.